Hi, everybody. Welcome to FedTrends. What is OASIS Plus? All right, there's a lot of questions about what OASIS Plus is. There's been updates coming out of the government. So let me answer some questions for everybody. Now, first off, what is OASIS Plus? OASIS Plus is a GSA best-in-class vehicle. Now, what's that mean? Increasingly, the government is going to fewer contracts where they're going to put task orders out, fewer places that they're going to buy things, essentially. Now, you can think of this as how many different price lists do you want to buy something off of? If you were going to buy materials from somebody, you don't need to have a price list from 9 different hardware stores. You want 1, maybe 2, if you know that the prices are okay. That's basically what these best-in-class vehicles act as. It's a way to buy things from proven vendors, okay? It is not something that you're going to go get a spot on one of these vehicles and all of a sudden money gets dumped on top of your head. It is not that. So what is OASIS Plus? OASIS Plus is a follow-on. They've been doing OASIS contracts in GSA for well over a decade. OASIS was really created as a place for mission work. When I say mission work, this is managing whatever the agency does. So in the Department of Agriculture, that's inspecting crops. In the Department of State, that's processing passports. Whatever it is that the agency does, OASIS is a place where you can go to get that kind of work done. You just divide it into the nature of the work, and you put a task order out, and you end up with a project. Now, OASIS Plus is different in some ways. The first way that it is different is that it is a rolling on-ramp, which means that the way this used to work is they'd open it up, they'd say, you've got a couple of months to submit a bid, and then we're not doing this again for 5 or 10 years. It was pivotal and sometimes really impactful or damaging to a company that if you happened to be there at the right time, you could ramp onto one of these vehicles. Well, gee, here I am, and it's great, and I'm ready, and I have a new vehicle contract where I can go get task orders, or I missed it. Right? So maybe you have to wait 10 years to be able to participate in a task order vehicle. Rolling on-ramp now, which means that whenever you're ready, you're ready. This is a self-scored procurement. What's that mean? You're not telling them a story. You're not telling them how you would approach something. You are justifying that you are credible for it. This is not you're going to go tell them what kind of a house you would build for them. You're going to tell them that you've built houses, that you've done plumbing, that you've done electrical work. You're not telling them what you're going to build for them. So you're just demonstrating competence. That competence is basically self-scored. The way this works is that the government gives you a scoring sheet and you go down through that and substantiate it only with experience. You've got to give them a contract number and a value. You've got to quote the statement of work to demonstrate what you did that is relevant for the kind of work that they're going to put out on OASIS. You've got to demonstrate dollar value so that they understand what size project that you've done before that is relevant to something that might come out on OASIS. If you get points for having an ISO or a CMMI certification, you don't just tell them, they want to see a copy of it. Those are the kinds of things that you do in a self-scored procurement, which means it's not a typical proposal. It's not telling them a story. It's not coming up with a solution. It's just showing that you're credible. All right, so that's what it is. Now, what kind of work is going to go on it? There used to be fewer functional categories or domains on the vehicle. It was management and advisory, it was technical and engineering, research, intelligence, environmental support, facilities support, logistics, and what they called enterprise solutions. That was a lot, but it wasn't everything. And so you would have people that had work that had different aspects to it, or their agency needed something that was a little bit different. They needed some back office type support for the mission, and they would go to other contracts. So what OASIS Plus has done is they have added some domains. They have added business administration. You can think of all of the things that go into running an agency with all the various back office paperwork and planning and all of, crosses over into budgeting. Financial services covers the rest of it. Receiving invoices, paying invoices, tracking finances. Human capital, so the HR aspects of the organization, which can include uh, people to get to staff roles. The government does a lot of temporary worker hiring in some of these agencies. So all of those human capital functions are an aspect of OASIS Plus now. You've also got marketing and public relations, which encompasses a lot of outreach. If you think about the amount of communication that goes out from the government, there's a lot of that kind of work that is done by contractors. And the last is social services. Those are, I would think, things like an ACF or someplace in an HHS would do, those kinds of caseworker type individuals. So that's the type of work. Now, how does it differ from a multiple award schedule? If you've heard people talk about GSA schedules, and there's ads out there that say, "Oh, give me 30 minutes, and I will help you get onto a GSA schedule. You pay me several $1,000s, and you're going to end up with a windfall of millions of dollars dumped in your company." That's not going to happen. GSA schedules are just a price list, essentially. And the vetting is much lower for a GSA schedule than it is for something like OASIS. To get on a GSA schedule, you're really just proving that you're not prohibited from doing business with the government and that you've sold what you're trying to sell them someplace else. If you go back to the beginning of GSA schedules, they were really meant for commodities. They were things like GSA used to sell office supplies. And eventually they said, why do we have to be the ones that everybody buys office supplies from? We should decentralize that. But that used to be a core part of the GSA mission. And you would have buying power. So you'd get some agreement on, if I'm going to buy a pencil, if I'm going to buy a brick, if I'm going to buy a truck tire, how much should I, as the federal government, pay for that? That way, we don't worry about one organization buys 100 truck tires and another buys 1,000 truck tires. Across the entire government, we want to pool our buying power and get the best price. That works for materials. Where it started to get kind of odd and not as impactful is when it came to services. When you look at a network engineer, I don't have them in a room somewhere and we agree that for $75 an hour, you're going to get a network engineer. For $75 an hour, you're going to get a person that I can pay and still make some kind of profit on at $75 an hour. That's different from one company to the next. It's different in one location to the next. And so if you go to my GSA schedule and you get a network engineer, that network engineer at the same rate in New York City versus Topeka, Kansas are going to be very different. So the schedule is okay for services from the perspective of having a baseline for pricing, but it still takes a lot of vetting on an individual task order basis. OASIS Plus and vehicles where you do have to substantiate capability are like one step above that. So that's really what the self-scoring aspect goes to, and it does mean that you're a leg up on analysis of the capability of those contractors on top of a GSA schedule. So that's kind of the fundamental difference. In reality, that what you would see is pretty much the same process. A task order is going to come out on eBuy, and you can respond to it. And it might be for GSA Mass schedule holders, or it might be for OASIS Plus holders. That's really the only difference. But I do believe that we're going to see the government lean in a lot to consolidation of vehicles like this. And if you look across the domains of OASIS Plus now, there's not much that you couldn't get. There's going to be a category for all the different socioeconomic groups, the types of companies, including unrestricted, and across all the 11 domains now, all of those different work types, one should be able to fit almost any program that you're looking at into that contract. The fact that it's going to be a rolling admission process also eliminates the old problem that you used to see, where as soon as you would put 10 small businesses on any kind of a contract, you turn around and some of them have graduated out of the small business program. Now you don't have any anymore. There have been times I've been on vehicles where you would look and all of the small businesses had been acquired. And so if you released a task order to small business, you were going to get a bid from SAIC and Raytheon and Leidos and GDIT and whomever else, because they'd bought small businesses and ended up with those contracts. So what you're going to see now is the ability to consistently refresh each of the different socioeconomic categories, but also to get new and better services. When somebody comes along and there's a new area of emphasis for something, they can on-ramp onto the vehicle and then be there to offer task order-based proposals. So that's going to be better for everybody. It's going to be better for the government, and it's going to be better for vendors. It's also really helpful to businesses, all businesses, large and small, because so much time is spent trying to guess and triangulate where a task order is going to come out of, because you might be the perfect vendor for a program, or you might be the incumbent, and you just don't know how the government's going to buy it. And so there's a lot of chasing around trying to figure out. You have contingencies in place depending on how it's going to come out. So the more that the government consolidates down, the better and more consistent that procurement process can be. Now, OASIS is going to be better for complex integrated services, which increasingly, everything is a complex integrated service when it comes to the government. Everything has technology involved. Everything has security involved. There are very few quote unquote simple programs in my experience in the federal government, and that's only going to increase. Using AI to improve workflow performance, using any kind of technology, whether it's mobility to do field work faster, all of those things, you're going to have an integration of multiple different types of work on any program. And it has historically been an issue where the government, you have to sell the way the government buys. And so if the government is going to integrate a combination of technology and records management and some sort of mission service all in a task order, where do they go buy that? And so do they break it up into pieces and now they have to deal with 3 vendors, or do they have it in one consolidated program? And if they do, is there a contract that will allow them to do that? I believe OASIS Plus will allow them to do that. So I think that you're going to see a lot of task order content sent through OASIS Plus. Now, the other thing that is always a risk area or a concern for a vehicle like this is anybody going to use it? There have been a litany of vehicles that were dreamed up, architected, procured, and then nothing happens. I've had vehicles before where there were either no task orders at all, or maybe 1 or 2. I spent a tremendous amount of time on a GSA vehicle once that I ended up with a $2.2 million task order on, and that was it across the life of it. They only ever procured 4 or 5 task orders. That's immensely frustrating for a contractor. It's a massive waste of resources, and it's also a waste of administrative time for the government to do all of that and then have something that they don't use. I don't think you're going to see that on OASIS Plus. I think you're going to see it as a heavily used vehicle. So the last question is, what do you do now? If you're an organization that is looking at OASIS Plus, or you're just a contractor that hasn't heard of OASIS Plus, number one is go look at the domains. Do you do that kind of work? If you do, go look at the scoring sheet. This is a pretty straightforward activity. You can even get your favorite AI tool and ask it to extract that and compare it to your capabilities and your past performance database and see how it thinks you score before you take the time to go look at it. There's a minimum scoring threshold right in the score sheet. And so the important thing now is you can not ask yourself, do I want to bid OASIS Plus, or can I bid OASIS Plus? You can actually shape it as, when can I? Can I either go with some combination of teaming that allows me to get the right number of points, or can I just look down the road a little bit and understand that I'm going to have some programs that are going to continue to deliver. I'm going to get some more revenue under my belt. I'm going to get some more certifications across the company, and you believe that you're going to have the number of points to score at some date in the future. That's important. Now, what are some things to not do with OASIS Plus? Number one, don't plan on task orders coming out in 60 days. I think this is going to take longer. Don't plan on standing up a task order shop where your entire business is just going to be responding to these kinds of task orders, you need to know something about the task orders that are going to come out. This is not a minimal vendor IDIQ. There's going to be a lot of people that get access to this. So you're not going to do very well if you just start bidding anything that randomly comes out of OASIS Plus. And here's another thing that I would caution you against. If somebody approaches you to team on OASIS Plus so that they can borrow some points from you, or they think that they can, if you don't know them or you haven't worked for them or with them before, I'd be real hesitant. It's a lot of wasted time and effort to support bids like this if you don't have the company-to-company relationship that is going to deliver some kind of content to you, where you actually get access to the task orders, and if they win, that they have the ability to give you some work, and that there's somebody that you can work with. So I would caution you from just answering cold emails on that. But that's the current state of OASIS Plus. We'll see how GSA continues to evolve the RFP and where it goes from there. But that's the answer to the questions for today. Thanks for listening.